You're not here by accident. Something inside you, subtle yet powerful, brought you to this video at this moment. By the end, you'll understand why. This isn't just another coincidence. It's a call from within, a gentle nudge from your soul guiding you quietly. Transcending your old self isn't a loud, dramatic change. It doesn't come with fireworks or grand gestures. It's a quiet, almost imperceptible journey inward. It's not about becoming someone new through external changes. It's about shedding what was never truly yours. It's about remembering who you've always been at your core. This transformation doesn't shout. It whispers. It's like waking up one day and realizing you no longer fit the identity you clung to. You no longer resonate with the same spaces, conversations, or parts of yourself that once defined you. Carl Jung said true spiritual growth doesn't come from perfecting your personality, but from transcending it. It's about letting go of the non-essential, the armor or illusions, to remember your soul's essence, the quiet, unwavering truth within you. One of the first signs of this shift is that your past story no longer defines you. What once felt central now feels distant, like watching an old movie. You can see it and remember it, but it doesn't define you anymore. There's no need to reject it or feel nostalgic. You feel calm remembering, observing your journey without the urge to explain or justify it. You no longer tell your story from a place of hurt. You don't define yourself by what you suffered or achieved. You know it was all part of your path, but also understand with deep certainty that your worth isn't measured by it. The past no longer controls who you are or limits your potential. In the space once filled with guilt or pride, a gentle freedom emerges, allowing you to see the past for what it is, the past. This emotional distance isn't detachment, it's integration. You don't need others to understand your pain. You don't seek validation for your experiences. You no longer feel the urge to explain what shaped you. Your silence honors it, and that's enough. You'll notice that things that once triggered you now pass through you without leaving a mark. Words that once hurt now dissolve in your awareness. Relationships that once tied you to outdated versions of yourself start to lose their hold. Not because you're rejecting them, but because there's nothing left in you for them to cling to. As you rise above your old self, your emotions no longer dictate your reactions. This isn't due to disconnecting from your feelings, but from understanding which parts of you respond from the present and which merely repeat old patterns. Your internal dialogue shifts. The survival thoughts you once repeated fade away. You're no longer seeking redemption or punishing yourself for who you once were. You simply observe and move forward, as if something within you knows every previous chapter was essential to bring you here. This deep understanding comes not from the intellect, but from the soul. It's in this awareness that your old self begins to dissolve, not by vanishing, but because you no longer dwell there. And when you stop living in that old version of yourself, something inside becomes lighter. You don't forget your past. You simply don't need it as your foundation anymore. Your choices emerge from a freer, clearer place, aligning with who you truly are rather than the story you used to tell about yourself. Those self-definitions that once felt so solid, like, this is just how I am, or I can't change, begin to blur. Not because you resisted them, but because they no longer fit who you're becoming. You no longer act out of a need to maintain a fixed identity. You've realized your soul doesn't need labels to exist. Transcending your old self isn't about destroying it. It's about honoring what it once was and moving forward without carrying what no longer serves you. You stop clinging to the persona you created to survive and no longer feel the need to repeat emotional patterns or fit into spaces you've outgrown. The gentle ease with which you let go, releasing without resistance, shows you're no longer vibrating from a conditioned self. You're beginning to live from your true self, the self that doesn't need to defend or prove anything, the self that simply is. Then something else happens. Your way of connecting with others begins to shift naturally. You start relating to others from a clearer, more honest, unburdened place. You no longer seek in others what you've learned to give yourself. You don't look for a savior or need to be seen to feel real. Your presence is no longer something you negotiate out of fear of being alone. In the past, relationships were often built on need, unspoken agreements rooted in pain or unconscious emotional trade-offs. But now there is space to breathe, pause before reacting, and observe without absorbing everything. When you transcend, you stop repeating the emotional patterns that once held you captive. It's not that the world has changed, but you no longer make choices from your wounds. Your sensitivity no longer leads you blindly, and your giving now comes from a place of balance. This shift changes everything. Relationships stop reflecting what you lack and start mirroring who you already are. You no longer seek conversations to fill silence or intimacy to escape yourself. You can finally share from a place of fullness, not lack. This is true transformation, being who you truly are, no longer defined by your past. Your emotions become messengers, not masters. And your story turns into a sacred memory, not a living script. That's when you know you've begun to remember who you truly are. Even if someone doesn't resonate with you, there's no drama or resentment, because your emotional stability doesn't depend on someone else's willingness to stay. Your peace isn't placed in another's hands. This subtle shift changes everything. When you embody emotional independence, you discover a freedom that is both liberating and grounding. You're no longer running away or clinging. You're simply present, and that's enough. Your presence, once a background element, becomes your new language of love, a love that doesn't demand or beg to be seen, that doesn't need reciprocity to feel real. It's a quieter, deeper love that doesn't scream through promises or perform for validation. It remains steady, congruent, and peaceful, not needing to prove anything. You connect from a place of truth, not to uphold an image or fulfill a role. You no longer invest energy in empty conversations or relationships existing out of habit or history. Your refined energy naturally filters out what doesn't align. Even if that process stings, it brings relief and clarity. Your old self chose from urgency, fear of being left behind, or desperation for acceptance. Now, you no longer choose that way because you've made peace with silence. You've learned to welcome it like an old friend. You understand that the company of someone who doesn't truly connect can feel lonelier than solitude. So you stay with yourself, even if it means walking away from what you once thought was love. You stop confusing intensity with truth and drama with depth, recognizing that true peace has real roots. What needs constant tension to survive is often just a mask for disconnection. You no longer try to force understanding or convince anyone of your growth, nor do you justify why you can't stay in spaces that stifle your soul. Your natural energy, just by being true to yourself, speaks louder than words and unintentionally triggers reactions in those who haven't yet faced their own barriers. Some people will drift away while others will draw closer, but from a place of honesty, not need. You'll find peace with both because your center is no longer defined by your relationships. Instead, it defines them. In this new order, whatever stays does so because it truly resonates, not because it is forced. This profound change in how you relate to others quietly reshapes your entire reality. What once seemed essential gently dissolves, not as rejection, but as clarity. This clarity comes from having explored your own darkness so thoroughly that you no longer need to project it onto others. Your old self searched for mirrors, people, to confirm your worth and fill your empty spaces with half-presences and temporary comforts. But you no longer seek that kind of bond. You've realized that true connection doesn't consume you. It expands you. It doesn't ask you to betray your essence. It invites you to live it more fully. When you begin to connect from this renewed energy, everything changes. Connections become subtler, more honest, lighter. The strength of a bond isn't in its volume or intensity, but in its frequency, in that silent space where two souls can simply exist together without explanation, rescue, or clinging. In this new state, you set boundaries not from fear, but from love, self-love. These boundaries don't divide. They bring order, organizing your energy, time, and internal space. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to maintain what isn't growing with you, nor do you stay out of fear of losing what's left. You've shifted into another vibration, one that doesn't apologize for evolving, and you no longer feel the need to ask forgiveness for choosing your truth. That, in itself, is proof that your old self is no longer guiding your relationships now. It's your soul. Your soul only chooses what nourishes, uplifts, and reminds you of who you truly are. From this place, you understand the true purpose of companionship, not to complete you, but to share who you've already become. You no longer seek shelter in others because you have become your own safe space. This energetic self-sufficiency doesn't mean isolation. It means maturity at the soul level. You stop carrying emotions that don't belong to you and stop absorbing what others refuse to transform. You no longer fall into the trap of trying to heal those who haven't chosen healing for themselves. You no longer lose yourself in patterns where you try to be enough by diminishing who you are. Now you understand that real love isn't hidden sacrifice. It's presence without pressure, connection without chains. In this clear, quiet connection, the most powerful things begin to unfold. You become a mirror of transformation for others, not because you aim to lead or guide them, but simply because your energy resonates with them. Your presence in a state of harmony reveals truths others have long avoided. Some will appreciate this while others may resist, but you remain at peace because your connection is no longer from duty or obligation. It's rooted in the freedom of being true to yourself, and in that space you grasp something profound. The deepest, most meaningful bonds aren't those that promise the most, but those that honor each other's growth. Such connections arise once you've undergone your own transformation. You've faced, embraced, and lovingly released your old self, not out of rejection, but with understanding. You see now that your past self wasn't wrong or broken. It was simply trying to protect you the only way it knew. But that protection is no longer needed. You no longer hide behind a facade to feel worthy of love. You've stopped striving for acceptance. You simply are, and that is enough. Without effort, without seeking approval, your essence shines more purely than ever. In that purity, you find a new intimacy. It's not about sharing every wound or narrating your journey in detail. It's about being seen as you are right now. Without adornment, without pretense, you shed the weight of old disguises. You're no longer offended by misunderstanding or hurt by being overlooked. That's because your value no longer depends on others. It resides in the relationship you've built with yourself. A relationship born from silence, from lonely nights when you chose not to fall back into old habits, from days when you held yourself together even when nothing else did. From this deep root, your old self gently steps away, not because you banish it, but because it no longer aligns with your current frequency. You can look back and honor that version of you as part of your story, recognizing it did its best with what it knew, with what it had, and with what it believed was necessary to survive. But now, you're no longer just surviving, you're creating. In this state of conscious creation, there's no room for the rigid structures of the past. Now, there's space for softness, subtlety, and quiet vibrations. Your soul doesn't need to impress, defend, or prove its light. It simply inhabits it. Every relationship that remains or enters your life reflects this new state of being, where love is no longer a burden, but a supportive presence. Sharing comes from fullness, not lack, and choosing someone or something honors what aligns with your current self. Your view of life shifts permanently. What once seemed unfair now appears as part of a bigger design. What you once saw as mistakes are now seen as key moments of growth and transformation. You stop speaking to yourself as a victim. Your expanded consciousness recognizes that even painful moments have a greater purpose. Transcending your old self is more than healing wounds. It's seeing from a higher perspective, not because it feels better, but because your soul can't look through the same lens. You've elevated internally, allowing you to see what once felt like chaos as hidden order, silent teachings, and coded messages. Even your relationship with time changes. You stop living in a constant state of waiting. You don't chase what's slipping away or insist everything happens now. You live in harmony with your soul's natural rhythm, guided by inner maturity. In this rhythm, everything flows differently. Your priorities reorganize. What seemed important fades, and what you overlooked feels sacred. You begin to value silence, revere pauses, and trust the process even without understanding every step. You no longer need guarantees to move forward, just alignment. And that's enough. Now you know the soul doesn't need to understand everything to progress. It just needs to resonate with truth. This alignment becomes your compass. You stop making decisions out of fear of mistakes or urgency to fulfill others' expectations. Your choices aren't reactions to a painful past, but are quiet acts of honoring the present. This simple yet powerful shift changes how you experience life. You stop forcing meaning from every situation, understanding that true insight often comes after letting go. With that level of energetic maturity, you stop trying to control everything. You let go of the need for immediate answers from life. You start living with more gentleness, which doesn't mean weakness or passivity, but rather a refined and quiet power. Your strength turns inward and becomes unwavering, You no longer feel the need to showcase your journey or prove your transformation to anyone. Your sincere silence speaks louder than words ever could, changing how you move through the world. You become more aware of your days, finding meaning in the smallest moments, the brief pauses, and the subtle gestures. You're no longer chasing accomplishments or measuring growth by what's visible to others. Now, you gauge it by how you feel when you wake up, by the calm you sense when alone, by the peace within you, even when everything around you is in motion. Transcending the old self means moving beyond the limited identity you once held. You live from a higher perspective without leaving your body, inhabiting a new frequency and state of being while remaining grounded in the world you know. It's no longer about reacting to life's challenges, but about consciously choosing how to experience reality. This choice becomes the seed of transformation, altering how you relate to every part of your existence. What once felt burdensome now becomes an opportunity to be fully present. What once drained you now dissolves quietly and gently without resistance or resentment. Though this transformation may not be immediately visible to others, it is deep, lasting, and powerful. You no longer rely on circumstances to find peace. Your inner peace is no longer tied to whether things go your way. It comes from living faithfully in alignment with your true self. This inner fidelity is non-negotiable, becoming your anchor, center, and guiding truth. The old self measured worth through goals, others' approval, applause, and external validation. But you're no longer chasing those illusions. You've discovered that true fulfillment doesn't come with noise. It reveals itself quietly. It shows in the rhythm of your breath, the way you choose your words, and the calm dignity with which you walk away from anything that no longer nurtures your soul, without causing harm or conflict. You start viewing challenges differently, not as punishments or obstacles meant to break you, but as thresholds, gateways your soul must pass through to awaken dormant parts of you. You stop running from them and face them with the inner understanding that they're not here to destroy you, but to reveal you. This shift fundamentally changes your energy. Your vibration no longer emits fear or doubt. It radiates a truth that needs no defense, speaking clearly through your eyes, presence, and stillness. In this moment of inner clarity, you realize the most significant change occurred within you, not outside. The transformation wasn't about altering your environment, but seeing life through your awakened soul, free from the need to fix, prove, or please yourself. From this awakened perspective, the ordinary becomes sacred not because the world changed, but because your perception is free from lack or fear. Your gaze softens, expands, and fills with gratitude. You don't need divine signs to believe or absolute certainty to move forward. You walk to a slower inner rhythm, not because you've slowed down externally, but because you're no longer chasing what was never meant for you. You allow yourself the freedom to choose differently, even if others don't understand. You give yourself permission to not have all the answers, to not be in control, and to leave room for mystery to unfold, trusting that life works with you, not against you. In this sacred space, everything aligns not because you're doing more, but because you're resisting less. Your vibration becomes a magnet for what resonates with who you've become. You no longer need to force, hold on, or push. What is meant for you stays. What isn't fades away peacefully and without drama. Even difficulties take on a new shape. They don't vanish, but no longer shatter you as they once did, because you don't face them from a wounded self. You face them with a depth that seeks understanding and a maturity that stays in alignment. You meet life with presence, not urgency. You stop striving to be someone and start embodying who you truly are. In this embodiment, everything changes, not suddenly or loudly, but completely. Though others may not see it, it changes everything. When your energy aligns with your truth, your reality responds in kind. No chaos, no struggle, just synchronicity, clarity, and the quiet whisper within you that speaks without words, reminding you of what you've always known. You're no longer who you used to be. You've transcended, and this transcendence is felt in silence, recognized by the depth of your presence. There's no exact moment when it all clicks, no marked point of arrival. One day, you simply notice you don't react the same way. The things that once hurt you now barely touch you. You no longer rush through life with the urgency that used to dominate your inner world. You've changed, not just on the surface, but at your core. This deep change needs no label to be real. You sense it in how you carry yourself, choosing peace over performance. It shows in your ability to sit in silence without anxiety, to embrace uncertainty without losing your balance, to live from what truly matters without embellishment. Your energy no longer scatters in countless directions. It consolidates, aligns, becomes a steady flow, a flow driven not by pressure or expectation, but by an inner source that requires no name or explanation. This source, this guidance, stems from a connection deeper than your identity, labels, or story. You no longer exist to maintain an image. You exist to express an essence that has always been with you, patiently waiting while you were busy chasing, proving, surviving, waiting for you to let go of distractions. And you did. You chose differently, moved forward, and without realizing it, you transcended not as an achievement, but as a natural result of choosing honesty over habit, staying true to yourself when silence was harder than noise, standing by your soul when turning back was easier. Now, the old version of you is no longer in control, replaced by someone real, calmer, more authentically you than ever before. From this place of authenticity, a new chapter begins, one where you respond with presence rather than react. You no longer chase approval, having remembered your worth simply by existing. You no longer seek belonging, for your soul remembers its eternal home was always within you. Life is no longer a race. It becomes a sacred unfolding. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped resisting what isn't. You welcome each moment not with resignation, but with peace from reconciling with the present. Your days are no longer repetitive cycles. They become a living expression of your new frequency. Every word you speak, every gaze you offer, every step you take carries the mark of someone living from their center, and that mark, though invisible, leaves an undeniable impact. A soul that has transcended its former self doesn't need to move mountains to transform the world. Its very presence is healing a silent medicine, a reminder that living in alignment is not only possible, but powerful. It shows others that healing is real, that letting go doesn't mean forgetting, and becoming doesn't mean rejecting who you were. It means honoring the journey, understanding that every step prepared you for this moment, this now. Now that you're here, your energy speaks volumes and the world responds. If you feel this message resonate deep within, It's no coincidence. Your soul already knew. It was just waiting for you to remember yourself. Transcending your old self isn't an end, but a beginning one, where you return to your true self, free from fear, masks, and burdens. Carl Jung said, "Enlightenment comes from making the darkness conscious, not just imagining light." These words hold a truth many avoid. Facing your darkness and acknowledging your shadow is both terrifying and liberating. It's not just a metaphor. It's a raw, sometimes painful process of peeling back layers to meet parts of yourself you've ignored or denied. If you're listening now, something in you has already shifted. You've crossed an invisible threshold, no longer fearing the dark corners of your mind. You've stopped running and chosen to look inward, confronting wounds, memories, patterns, and emotions that once held power over you. This is no small step. It's the start of true transformation. The shadow isn't to be destroyed or erased. It's not your enemy. It's a part of you, waiting for acceptance and love. Making the darkness conscious means seeing, naming, and integrating it. When you do, the parts that felt broken become sources of deep wisdom. Pain becomes a teacher, fear a guide, chaos a doorway to clarity. You've walked this path, taken your shadow by the hand, and said, "I see you. I'm ready to listen." That takes courage and strength. It's a journey many avoid, but you didn't. You've turned your shadow into a bridge, not a burden, and now you move through life feeling grounded, truthful, and real. If this space has accompanied you on this journey, echoing something ancient and familiar in your soul, know this: you're not alone. You're part of something greater, transcending language and time, a collective awakening, a shared remembering. Others, like you, are stepping out of illusion into authenticity, choosing presence over perfection and wholeness over avoidance. If your heart calls you to keep exploring, shedding the false and embracing the true, then walk with us. Keep going. Every step you take inward resonates outward. Choosing truth over comfort and confronting darkness rather than denying it brings forth light not imagined or forced, but naturally revealed. You are not who you once were, and you are not alone. If these words resonate with you and awaken something within, I encourage you to stay connected. This space is designed for souls like yours, ready to embark on a different path, one of depth, presence, and inner clarity. If you haven't already, consider subscribing not just to a channel, but to a movement of consciousness. Each video, reflection, and moment we share here supports your journey and reminds you of who you truly are beyond the noise. Subscribe, and let's continue walking this path together.